What a wonderful way to celebrate the 1st of May. First of all, because it is the Day of Labor. Every year, traditionally, we celebrate the 1st of May as Labor Day, and usually there are announcements that are being made regarding the condition and the status of workers, not only in the Philippines, but also throughout the world. We have these announcements that actually involve labor practices, benefits for those who are working, several other conditions that affect everybody who works. But another celebration also, the 1st of May, we just recently had the announcement of all of those who passed the bar. And they are now the new lawyers that we have, welcoming them into this large community of the legal practice. It is a wonderful day, likewise, because it is also the moment when they have actually realized the years that they have gone through, from the first year all the way to the 4th year, the review, and that was the most difficult of it all, the most full of tension and all of this. So those of you who took up law, or those who are actually in the studies of law right now, would know that in the first year there are usually something like 5 or 6 sections altogether, and then this dwindles a bit when you get to the 2nd year. And then on the 3rd year, which is one of the more difficult of the years, because then you have the more difficult subjects, and everything that you practically memorized in your first year, you have to re-memorize again in your 3rd year. And then after that, the 4th year, and then the review classes, and then of course the bar operations, where you're preparing to take the exams, which will qualify you to be in the legal profession. So I say it's a wonderful time, really, and a time for celebration. We applaud all of those who have reached the top of their studies, all the bar top-notchers, but especially likewise the colleges and the universities in the outskirts of Metro Manila. Time was when Metro Manila has been the center of all of these colleges and universities graduating from the College of Law, but now we have a sprinkling of many of them coming from the provinces and the state universities out there. So to them, likewise, we congratulate them and we stand and applaud them on this day. But there is another incident that I have to mention now, especially since we are recording our chronicles, not only for history, but also for some of the input that is most important in our lives. There was a time when I was about to take up the final exams in the College of Law, and there were some professors, no, not even professors, there were instructors of the College of Law, about 6 of them actually, who wrote to the dean of the College of Law saying that I should not be allowed to take the final exams in the 4th year of my studies in law because of the probability that I may be involved in some of the ill-gotten cases of the then President Ferdinand E. Marcos. That was sometime in March. I think it was March 5, thereabouts. You can imagine how painful that was to receive that letter. And well, the professor we had at the time, because we were already doing some review in some way, that was Professor Natura. He's still alive. You can ask him what happened on that day. He received the letter from the dean's office, and he read the letter aloud to my class. In our class at 4th year, there were just about, how many of us were left? Maybe not even 2 dozens of us, actually. Sabi ko nga, when you start at 1st year, hanggang pag-abot ng 4th year, talagang kumukonti na ng kumukonti. There are fewer and fewer of us. So the letter there was signed by some 6 assistant instructors. They were not even full professors or full instructors. And they claimed that some BEDA, that was the College of Law where I was enrolled in, should not give me that title of being a graduate of Sambeda, and that I should not take the final exams. Can you imagine this? The final exams in your 4th year class. What did we do? Well, my class was, of course, indignant, and they were shocked at this because they knew these assistant instructors. None of them were our instructors. We had professors actually in our class already, but still they stood by me, and they also decided to inform the dean that they will also not be taking the final exams if I will not be allowed to do so. But I was able to convince them that you should not take up the case as far as I'm concerned. Now, why were they writing this letter to the dean, asking the dean not to allow me to take my final exams? Well, just as a way of background, I have a contract of work with the National Media Production Center. I am not even a government employee of the then administration of President Marcos. I am not one of those civil servants, as you would say, or appointed by government, but they had a contract with me, or I signed a contract with them for the exclusive coverage of Channel 4 for the Office of the President. At the time, it was only the government television channel that was handling the Office of the President. And I was assigned or requested to undertake this. And so I had to sign a contract, a work contract, a labor contract with the National Media Production Center, under which Channel 4, or the government television channel, was functioning. This happened in a way because at the time, I had practically no background in television or in journalism or in media. My basic philosophy studies at the University of Santo Tomas and my graduate studies at the Philippine Center for Advanced Studies in the University of the Philippines was on anthropology. So, but not what happened was I was editing some papers, and it was actually the late Carmen Guerrero Nakpil, Tita Chitang, as we would call her fondly. She was the one who requested that I be assigned to do some television talk shows regarding an international conference which was held at the PICC at the time. This was the International Conference on the Survival of Humankind. And because of that exposure, my first exposure then in television, the person who was assigned to cover the Office of the President at the time, you would still know the name, Vero Perfecto, a tall, handsome, and what a wonderful voice of a man. He died of a heart attack quite suddenly. And so what happened was I was requested to take over his position. So for the regime of President Marcos, I was the sole voice that you would hear covering the live events, either in the Office of the President or in any outside broadcast where he would be invited to either inaugurate some kind of a project or the diplomatic travels that he may have. And in addition to that, I was also assigned to do the television coverage and the documentaries that I also did for the diplomatic visits and missions of the First Lady, Madame Imelda Romualdez Marcos. So that was my work, a contracted work with the Office of the President through the National Media Production Center. And indeed, there was some kind of a big exposure that perhaps my voice or my face could be seen on television every time there was a big event. Also, in the studios where they had these public affairs programs like national elections, for instance, referenda, plebiscites, and all of this. So because of that exposure, everybody thought that I was a spokesperson, but I was not. Remember this, I was simply annotating or broadcasting a live broadcast. And this means that you cannot add any more. You do not give your opinion. You don't make a commentary. All you do is introduce the event, give a little background of what the event is all about, and then let the event play by itself. And then make a concluding statement saying that this is already the coverage that you have seen regarding this particular event, and that was it. And I say my name and make my exit. That was all. If indeed there were documentaries that I presented, it was also because of the events that I covered. So what happened? Because of that exposure on the government television channel, these 6 assistant instructors from the San Beda College of Law wanted to expel me from the College of Law. I challenged them. I went to the public address system of the college and I told, and I announced really quite strongly, because this is so unfair. And speaking of the law, that is a college of law. And I was taking up law in that college, and these are law instructors. And so I challenged them and I said, give me a bill of particulars. In other words, what are you charging me with that I must be expelled from this college? There was no answer from them. And then I challenged them again. If this College of Law of San Beda taught me my law well, I will defend myself right now by myself. Well, I didn't have to do that because there were rallies already that were all over the campus. I understand that the other colleges like commerce, education, or whatever, they were all on the street already all over the campus, and they were all rallying for me. But that was not because of my cause. It was because it was all the finals for their classes, and that was a good excuse to extend the timeline before they could get into their finals. But it was fun because then you could see that several of them actually believed that this was really some kind of an injustice. I speak of it now as I even commend and congratulate the new graduates and those that pass the bar. Do not ever get into a situation like this. Should you be in positions of power or in a position where you could unleash your hatred or your anger because of political reasons, do not ever have that in your minds and in your hearts, because the study of law is the administration of justice. Now, what happened? Well, I had to go to the dean. I had to go to the head of San Beda, and I asked that if I be granted the permission to take the finals. Well, that was not all that they granted me. They also granted me the title that I could graduate as a law student of the College of Law of San Beda. And you can imagine, during my graduation, everybody stood up and they were clapping because finally I was able to take or to transcend that hurdle. If you would go back to the school organ of the College of Law at the time, what was written there was, since I was also very studious in a way and was for some time in the dean's list, they actually projected that I could be one of the bar tap natchers at the time. But what happened? Well, when we were already undertaking the review, and by some good coincidence, the review classes were held at the auditorium of the San Beda College of Law, and I was there at the front seat together with the rest of my classmates. Every once in a while, some voice in the sound system would announce, well, they were calling my name, please come to the office. I sat quietly, and whoever was our reviewer at the time would announce, you are not going to go to the office at this time because I will not repeat my lecture. Another voice comes up again from the loud system, calling my name and saying, you have to report to the office right now. Well, finally, I had to go. And what did I find out there at the office? My house was being raided by by the people from Malacanang of the administration of Mrs. Aquino. So I had to rush to get back home. What was this raid for? I called some of my friends in media to go ahead and be there to find out and to document exactly why there are soldiers or there are people who would want to raid. Why will they raid my house? You know what they were looking for? They were looking for the Marcos gold. Oh my goodness. I was just on contract with the National Media Production Center. I had no office in any government institution. I was not in any position at all in any, either a finance institution or any other office. I was in consultancy with some like the Development Academy of the Philippines, where I had to lecture at the University of Life, where also I was a lecturer, but that was all. This was all under contract. So what happened? I had to face all of these soldiers and these people who were there coming from the offices. Do you know that their IDs were as big as a, well, what do you call this, a typewriting paper? That was how large their IDs were, saying that they were from the office of the president, etc. And they wanted to find out if Marcos kept his gold in my house. Can you imagine that? I haven't even sat with President Marcos at any one time at all in all the periods of years that I have been covering him, nor have I spoken with him regarding his personal or his economic or his financial life. But be that as it may, that's what they did. Anyway, so I went back to my review classes at the College Auditorium of San Beda. But what happened while we were there, I was called to the registrar's office, and verbally I was told that my application to take the bar was not accepted by the Supreme Court. And so I asked, why so? Well, let me tell you the background of this, why I was not admitted to take the bar. Because the one of the assistant instructors that wrote that letter to expel me from the College of San Beda, his father was appointed to the Supreme Court by the new administration of Mrs. Aquino. The hatred and the anger and the rage continued all the way. My goodness, is this genetics? Well, that was it. What do I do? What could I do? That is already the Supreme Court. Will I challenge the highest supreme body of our system, of our justice system? This is the beginning of my chronicle. I had to mention this at this stage, because while we celebrate the new graduates and the bar top notchers, I must tell you what happened to my particular case. And this incident should never again, ever happen to anyone. It has never happened again. How sad it is that it was the administration of Mrs. Aquino and all her minions at the time who actually had this kind of an injustice of a student of law from the College of San Beda. This is my first chronicle, and let justice prevail in our hearts the way it should. Let not anger or hatred or political differences ever divide us as a people, and most especially you, the new lawyers, remember this incident. Thank you.